Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If you already know what you should do, why are you still where you are? Think about it for a second. You're not confused. You're not uninformed. You're not waiting for clarity. You already decided. So why hasn't anything changed? This is the question most people avoid because once you ask it honestly, you can't hide behind uncertainty anymore. Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they already decided and still didn't move. They mistake thinking for progress and clarity for commitment. In the last video, we talked about why staying a bit longer quietly becomes expensive. Today, we go one layer deeper. This video is about the invisible gap between decision and action, and why that gap destroys more lives than bad decisions ever could. If this is your first time here, a quick orientation. This channel is not about motivation, it's not about hacks, and it's definitely not about optimism. It's about decisions that actually change something. Every video in this series builds on the previous one. Not deciding has a cost, staying has a cost, and today we're looking at what happens after the decision feels clear, but nothing follows. Here's the first hard truth. A decision that never turns into action is not a decision. It's a conclusion with no consequences. Most people say, I already know what I should do. What they really mean is, I reached a mental conclusion that doesn't force me to change anything yet. Thinking is reversible. Action is not. You can rethink a decision 1,000 times. You can't undo an action without paying a price. That's why the mind prefers clarity over commitment. Clarity feels productive. Commitment feels dangerous. Deciding happens in isolation. You can do it alone, quietly, without witnesses. Action happens in the real world, and the real world pushes back. Once you act, people react, expectations shift, explanations are required, identities get exposed. That's the real cost people sense, even if they can't articulate it. So they stop at the last safe point. They decide. And then, wait. If you want more videos like this, calm, structured, without noise, subscribe to this channel. Every video here is designed to sharpen thinking, not to make you feel good for 5 minutes. Here's something subtle but important. There is a comfort zone between decision and action. It feels responsible. It feels cautious. It even feels mature. People say things like, I'm just being thoughtful. I don't want to rush. I'm giving it time. But time doesn't clarify decisions like this. Time anesthetizes them. The longer you wait, the less urgent the decision feels, even though the cost keeps growing underneath. This is where most explanations fail. People don't avoid action because they're lazy. They avoid action because action forces a new identity. Once you leave, you become the one who left. Once you ask, you become the one who asks. Once you change, you stop being who people are used to. That identity shift is heavier than uncertainty. So people stay in a strange in-between state. No longer aligned, not yet committed, constantly preparing. They're not passive. They're rehearsing a life they never enter. This is exactly why Quit and Go exists. Not to help you decide what to do, but to force clarity on whether staying is still defensible. If you're stuck in that middle zone, clear in your head, frozen in reality, that framework is designed to remove emotional justification and replace it with structural truth. Link is in the description, something people don't like to hear. Time does not solve decision problems. Time locks them in. Waiting feels neutral. It feels passive. It feels like you're not making a mistake. But time is never neutral. Every day you don't act, something still happens, just not in your favor. The longer you wait, the more your situation starts to feel permanent. What once felt like a temporary pause slowly becomes how things are. What once felt uncomfortable slowly becomes familiar. And familiarity is dangerous, not because it's painful, but because it makes change feel unreasonable. There's also a quieter cost people rarely calculate. Every month you wait, your explanation becomes harder. Your future change requires more justification. Your identity adapts to the role you're playing right now. At some point, it's no longer. Why did you change? It becomes, why didn't you change sooner? And that question carries weight. This is why people often say, I should have done this years ago. Not because the decision wasn't clear back then, but because back then, the cost of acting was lower. Time increases the emotional interest rate. The longer you delay, the more courage action requires later. Waiting also creates a false sense of safety. You tell yourself, at least I'm not making it worse. But in reality, you're accumulating something invisible. Sunk cost, habit, expectation. These things don't show up immediately. They show up the moment you finally try to move. That's why time rarely pushes people toward action. It does the opposite. It makes inaction feel justified. It makes staying feel reasonable. It makes change feel disruptive, even when it's necessary. And once time has done its work, even small actions start to feel heavy. Not because they are big, but because they come late. If this way of breaking things down helps you think clearer, subscribe. This channel is built for people who want fewer thoughts and more resolved decisions. At this stage, more information won't help you. Not because information is useless, but because it no longer addresses the real problem. Another video, another article, another perspective, it all feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you're still working on the decision. But nothing actually changes, because information only helps before a decision. After that, it becomes a hiding place. Most people don't keep consuming content because they need clarity. They do it because information has one crucial advantage. It carries no consequences. You can watch, you can read, you can nod along, and your life stays exactly the same. That's why information feels safe. Here's the uncomfortable part. At this point, consuming more content is no longer about learning. It's about avoiding the moment where something becomes irreversible. Every new video gives you a reason to wait just a little longer. Every new angle suggests there might still be something you've missed. Every new explanation delays the moment of commitment, and that delay feels rational. Information creates the illusion of progress without risk. You feel engaged, you feel thoughtful, you feel like someone who takes decisions seriously. But none of that requires you to act. Action, on the other hand, has a cost. It exposes you, it locks you into a path, it removes excuses. That's why the mind keeps choosing information over execution. This is also why so many people get stuck in permanent preparation. They don't say, I'm avoiding action. They say, I'm still researching. I just want to be sure. I don't want to make a mistake. But certainty does not come from more input. Certainty comes from crossing a line you can't uncross, and information will never push you across that line. So if you notice yourself consuming content over and over again, especially content that confirms what you already know, that's not a signal that you need more insight. It's a signal that insight is no longer the bottleneck. Commitment is. This shows up very clearly with salary decisions. People already know they should ask. They've decided internally. But the conversation never happens. Ask for more exists for this exact moment. Not to teach negotiation tactics, but to decide whether staying silent is still rational. Same gap, different context. Here's the shift most people never make. A decision is not finished when you feel certain. It's finished when reversal becomes uncomfortable. Most people believe commitment comes from confidence. In reality, confidence usually comes after commitment. Before action, you rarely feel ready. You feel exposed, you feel unsure. And that's not a sign something is wrong, it's a sign the decision is real. This is where binding mechanisms matter. A binding mechanism is anything that removes the ability to quietly walk away. Not motivation, not willpower. Structure. Deadlines you can't ignore. Written commitments you can't reinterpret. External consequences that exist outside your head. Without these, every decision remains soft. Soft decisions feel responsible. They give you room. They preserve options. They avoid pressure. But they also avoid resolution. A soft decision can always be postponed. A hard decision demands follow-through. This is why people keep saying, "I've decided, I just haven't acted yet." What they really mean is, "I've reached a conclusion, but I haven't accepted the cost." Because the moment a decision becomes binding, it stops being hypothetical. You can no longer negotiate with yourself. You can no longer delay without friction. Binding mechanisms change the emotional balance. They make inaction more uncomfortable than action. That's the point most people miss. You don't move because you feel confident. You move because staying put starts to feel heavier. This is also why public commitment works. Not because other people motivate you, but because backing out now has a social price. Your identity is on the line. Your words exist outside your head. Your decision becomes visible. Once a decision reaches that stage, action stops being a debate. It becomes execution. And that's the moment where most lives quietly change. Not with certainty, but with resolve. If you're someone who wants to stop circling decisions and start closing them, subscribe. The next videos will go even deeper into this gap between clarity and action. Both frameworks you'll find below, Quit and Go and Ask for More, are not about motivation. They are about forcing commitment where thinking has stalled. Use them only if you're ready to stop waiting. In the next video, we'll talk about something most people misunderstand: why waiting for confidence before acting is a trap, and why certainty usually comes after action, not before it. If this video hit close to home, the next one will feel even more uncomfortable and more necessary.